Good morning, Minister Elwood. I'd like to first of all say a few nice words about the Jewish News and Vicom, who are today in this conference, but I think every day through their work, are contributing to a more considered discussion of Israel and the Middle East in this country, and in doing so I think are fulfilling a very, very valuable role. And I think everyone who is interested in a more considered discussion should unite with me in thanking both the Jewish News and Vicom, once again specifically for today, but also for to do year in, year out. I'd also like to start off by apologizing for the Israelis who are not going to be here according to the schedule. As you know, the Knesset is a place of vigorous debate, and one of those debates is happening today. And as a result, both people from the government side and the opposition side cannot leave the Knesset chamber today, and I apologize to all of you that some of the people on the schedule are not here. If we had a Soviet system in Israel, it would never happen. But in Israel, it does, as it does, I think, in this country on occasion. Correct, Tobias? Absolutely. And so I nevertheless apologize for those who are not here today. We are rapidly approaching December, and after December will come January, and we will be in 2017. And 2017 is an interesting year because it is a year of historic anniversaries. We will mark in 2017 50 years to the Six-Day War in June. Obviously, for Israelis, for Jewish people, the Six-Day War has a very special significance, most specifically the unification of Jerusalem. To the other side, it brings up other memories. We'll also mark in 2017 70 years to the famous UNSCOP partition proposals, where there was a proposal put on the table for 2 states for 2 peoples. Proposals accepted and welcomed by the Israeli, by the Zionist side. Proposals unfortunately rejected by the Palestinian side, but that's another important anniversary. We'll also mark, for those of you who are historical buffs, in 2017, 120 years since Herzl brought together the very first Zionist Congress in Switzerland, which in the history of our national renaissance, that's a very important date, 120 years to the first Zionist Congress. And then we have 2 important centenaries, 2 important 100 anniversaries. In December 2017, we will mark 100 years to Allenby, General Allenby, towards the end of the First World War, marching in and liberating Jerusalem from the Ottomans. And that is not just the specific event of the British military coming in to the Holy Land and liberating Jerusalem, but that is in many ways the opening date of the new Middle East, because that's the end of the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East and the beginning of the new period. The modern Middle East begins possibly in 1917. And then obviously we have that other important anniversary, and that is the anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. Centenary, November 2nd, 1917, Lord George's government issues the Balfour Declaration. And that's also an important event to mark. Now, if we're talking about Balfour, I think it's crucial that we discuss what Balfour is and what Balfour is not. Balfour did not create Zionism. Balfour did not create the Jewish right to a homeland. In fact, all of you who are students of Zionism know that Zionism preceded Balfour. I just mentioned the First Zionist Congress is 20 years before Balfour. The immigration of Jews to Israel to re-establish their homeland starts in the previous century. I think the first Aliyah, what we call in modern Israeli history, is 1881. Chovavei Zion, which are the previous to Herzl Zionists. That's 20 years before. People like Moses Hess were in the mid-19th century. So Balfour isn't the beginning of Zionism. Balfour didn't give the Jews the right to re-establish our homeland. We were doing that anyway. That is our natural right as a people to seek self-determination in our historic homeland. The importance of Balfour is that it was the first time a major world power recognized our right. The recognition in the international community that the Jewish people have a right to independence, that the Jewish people have a right to equality among the nations, that we have a right to national self-determination. And Balfour starts a process which is very important because Balfour leads to San Remo, which is the League of Nations mandate where the British are given the mandate for Palestine for the purpose of, according to the League of Nations, to foster and develop a Jewish homeland. And that in turn leads to what we discussed a moment ago, the 29th of November with the UN proposals for partition, and of course after that Israel's independence. So Balfour is a crucial milestone in the political development of our independence. It's an important milestone on the path to Israeli independence. And in Israel we'll be celebrating that, of course. Now, I believe that there are many reasons that we can all be proud of Balfour. I think there are many reasons why the British government and British society can be proud of Balfour. Obviously, in Britain's history, especially in British imperial history, there are many things that the British people look at critically and in a way of self-introspection. But I believe that Britain can be proud of Balfour, and rightly so, for three reasons. One, in recognizing the Jewish people's right for independence and sovereignty in our homeland, Britain did the right thing. It acted to right a historic wrong, that the Jews were a persecuted minority, that the Jews were denied independence and sovereignty, that the Jews were victims of persecution like possibly no other people. Balfour gave, as I say, recognition that the Jewish people strove for independence and sovereignty in their homeland. And that's something, doing the right thing is always something that's praiseworthy. And for that, I think Britain can be proud of Balfour. But it's not just that. I said three reasons, and that's only one. A second reason why I believe Britain can be proud of Balfour is the fact that Israel, with all our faults, Israel is nevertheless a parliamentary democracy, a society where we have a free press, free academic institutions, free trade unions, where governments are voted in and out of office through free and competitive elections, where there is rule of law, where there is equality under the law. The only country in the Middle East where you can have a gay pride march, the only country in the Middle East who I'm proud to say where you have a vibrant NGO culture, a very, very energetic civil society. And when British people, and we've had a conversation in this country over the last few years of what are British values? And rule of law, tolerance, pluralism, live and let live, democracy, freedoms. These are what the British societies articulate as British values. So when British people look at the Middle East and they look at that massive expanse of land from Morocco on the Atlantic shore through to Central Asia, through to countries like Afghanistan and Iran, What's this? There's 400 million people living in that great land mass, 30, 40 countries. Let's be frank. There's only one country that reflects those British values of democracy, of freedom, of the rule of law, and that is the Jewish state that Britain helped create through the Balfour Declaration. And that's the second reason I believe people can be proud in this country of their contribution for the Balfour Declaration. And a third reason, and this we in government know well, I think people on government on both sides know well. The third reason I think people can be proud of Balfour is the fact that Israel and Britain today are allies, partners, and friends. There were many countries created after 1917 when British and French diplomats drew lines and made the modern Middle East. But I think Israel is a very, very special ally of the United Kingdom. In fact, I would argue, and I think many would agree, that the relationship between the United Kingdom and Israel brings tangible benefits to both sides. Today, in this conference, you will be discussing high-tech, Israeli technology. I have no doubt whatsoever, that the investment, the trade, the economic cooperation between Israel and the United Kingdom brings tangible benefits to both sides, jobs and prosperity. That cooperation makes both our people better off. And that's something that I think we can be proud of. And there's another thing which I will allude to, that I won't go into detail, but I think everyone in this audience knows what I'm talking about, and that is, we cooperate in other areas. We cooperate in areas like counterterrorism, like cybersecurity, and other related areas. And I have no doubt that the strong cooperation between Israel and the United Kingdom in those areas is playing a tangible role in making the British people and the Israeli people safer and more secure. A third and very important reason why I think we can all be proud of the Balfour Declaration. So having said all that, one has to ask, why have the Palestinians formally asked the United Kingdom to apologize for that? They've said so publicly. I'm not telling you all a secret. And the fact that they've done so is, I think, discouraging, disappointing, and unfortunately, a touch revealing. Because if you're against Balfour, you don't have a problem with Israel's settlement policy, or you don't have a problem with where the future border will be between Israel and a Palestinian state in peace. You're not even raising questions as to the future status of Jerusalem. If you raise questions about Balfour, you're actually raising questions about Israel's very legitimacy, about the right of the Jewish state to exist in any frontiers. And I think it's a pity that that's where official Palestinian leadership has put itself. If Israel is a creation of, in their narrative, an illegitimate creation of a colonial period, so I as an Israeli, I as a Jew, I am a Zionist, so I am just like the British were in India, or the French were in Indochina, in Vietnam, or like the Belgians in the Congo. And there's a solution to colonialism, and that solution is decolonization. In other words, I should go home, wherever that is. It's a pity the Palestinians are in that narrative, because what they're basically saying is that the Jewish homeland has no right to exist, that the Jewish state is illegitimate. And I would ask Palestinians who claim to be pragmatic and claim to be moderate and claim to support peace, if you deny the legitimacy of my country, if the Jewish state is illegitimate in your eyes, what sort of peace are you offering? I think that's a fair question. If I'm a colonialist, if I'm an imperialist, if there's something fundamentally illegitimate about my country, what sort of peace are you offering? You know, the Palestinians have had numerous opportunities for statehood. The first time was offered by the British government in 1937, the Peel proposals. I discussed a moment ago a second time in 1947 where the UN put down 2 states for 2 people. In the year 2000, there was a further opportunity at Camp David. President Clinton, Prime Minister Barack, Chairman Arafat. In 2008, there was a further opportunity at Annapolis. But every time the key to Palestinian statehood was recognizing in parallel that the Jewish people also have a right to national self-determination. In other words, to accept Palestinian statehood, they had to accept in parallel that the Jews too had a right to national self-determination. And on each of those historic occasions, unfortunately, Palestinian leadership said no. And in saying no, they also closed the door to Palestinian statehood. You know, next year we will celebrate, in May, 69 years to independent Israel. And the Palestinians will commemorate what they call the Nakba, the disaster. I think it's fair to ask Palestinians, why aren't you also in parallel to Israel celebrating 69 years to an independent Palestine? Why not? We said no. The Israeli side said no. And so when Palestinians call publicly for people to disavow or to apologize for Balfour, they're actually exposing a maximalist, rejectionist position that has actually hurt the Palestinians more than anyone else. They are doing their own people a disfavor, a disservice in being stuck in this position that denies the Jewish right in any borders. I use this platform today, this platform provided by the Jewish News and provided by Viacom, to reiterate Israel's position. We are ready for the immediate resumption of peace talks without any preconditions whatsoever. We seek a solution of 2 states for 2 peoples, where a demilitarized Palestinian state finally recognizes the Jewish state. We're ready to start those negotiations immediately. And I think the Palestinian leadership will be doing its own people a positive service if, instead of calling on the British government to renounce and apologize for Balfour, if they look to the future and they embrace the possibility of peace, they embrace the possibility of coexistence, that they finally recognized the Jewish people also has a national right to self-determination, and that we move forward very energetically in a peace process which will serve us, them, and the region as a whole. Thank you all very much.